In the Phaedo, Socrates gives several arguments for the immortality of the soul, one of the most important of which is the argument from recollection. Now, recollection is something which Plato is very interested in. There's a very famous passage from another dialogue, the Meno, which shows a slave recollecting a geometric principle which he could not possibly have learned. But the specific focus in the Phaedo is on the subjective experience or phenomenology of recollection. Now, it might be thought that what recollection is like, or how we experience recollection, does not have anything to do with the immortality of the soul. And to see why this is not the case, it's important to look very closely at the examples which Socrates gives of ordinary recollection. So, he gives sort of two classes of examples, which are recollection from things which are similar or like, or different and unlike. And in both of these cases, there is something which you know, and then something which brings that thing into your mind. So the case of recollection from a similar thing that he gives is an image of one of his friends, Simmias, and then Simmias himself, seeing the image, Simmias himself is brought to mind. And the example of the unlike thing is a musical instrument, and then the person who plays that, where the instrument is not really like the person, but they're still brought to mind anyway. Now, for Socrates, the most relevant case is the case of recollection from the like to the like. So the image of Simmias to Simmias. Now, what's going on here phenomenologically is the simultaneous recognition of both similarity and difference. So when you see this image, which would have been a painted image, you'll notice, okay, so it's got these features, this looks like Simmias, it's a likeness of him. But you simultaneously recognize, the many ways which it falls short of being Simmias. It's, the nose is wrong, I didn't get the hair right, things like that. Both of these things happen simultaneously in recollection. Similarities and differences are simultaneously noticed, and then the thing which is similar is brought to mind. So, what does this have to do with the immortality of the soul? Well, this would only be possible if we know Simmias. We can only get this simultaneous recognition of similarity and difference, which causes him to come to mind, if we know him. And Socrates thinks that this is relevantly similar to what is going on in the case of things in themselves, or absolutes, like equality itself, or oddness itself. So, in the world, let's take the case of equality, we see a whole lot of things which are pretty equal. These two pens, for example, I'll look at these and say, yeah, those pens, they're equal, But I'll also simultaneously notice the many ways in which they fall short, in which they have both equality and inequality. Now, how could I know that they're falling short of equality when I've never actually seen equality itself? I've only seen things which have both equality and inequality. Well, I must have had the knowledge then, at some point, if I'm recognizing that they're falling short of equality, and it's not something which I could have learned through the senses, in the same way which I could have come to know Simmias through the senses. So, the knowledge is there in the relevant way, just like with recollection. That's the only way we can get this simultaneous recognition of similarity and difference that brings the thing to mind. But we could not have learned this through the senses. Therefore, this knowledge must have already been part of us. If this knowledge, then, was already part of us in some way, it's not something we learn through the senses, then it being a part of our soul means that the soul had to pre-exist sensible experience for us to have the kind of knowledge that would make this experience possible.